CCLI and Greg with two G's.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Welcome. So can you explain what a basic CCLI license covers and what a church needs to legally stream their live service?
You bet. Um, CCLI offers several licenses, and the core or anchor license, we like to call it, is called the copyright license. And that in and of itself authorizes a church or other ministry group to be able to copy songs for their worship times, such as putting songs in an overhead projection system, or putting songs in a handout or bulletin or song sheet format, and also to then record those services that they have. In a church setting, it could be for their main services, their auxiliary activities like youth meetings, Bible studies in homes, and old folks like me, stuff like that. And then add-on license, one of the add-on licenses we have is called the streaming license. And that authorizes a church to then take their service that they either have recorded or is going live and put it out onto the internet. Because once it goes out on the internet, it's considered a broadcast. And our license, so you have to have a particular licensing for that type of activity. And so our license gives you permission to do that if you already have the core copyright license. And so the streaming license then allows you to do a live stream, so it's happening in real time when people are watching it, or do what's called a delayed or archive stream, which means they can watch it a minute later, an hour later, a day later, a year later, as long as you're licensed with us. And so those come with, each come with their own costs based upon the size of the church. For example, a church of 50 people would pay, in the United States, would pay $133 a year for the copyright license, and then pay $66 a year for the streaming license. And loosely speaking, that's how it works with the stream. We do have a couple stipulations. One is that what's going on in the service itself has to be live. There cannot be pre-recorded material used in the service that is then streamed, such as background tracks, etc., that might be used by choirs or vocalists. Also, even some smaller churches don't have even a piano player, and they like to use CDs or something to help them sing, which is wonderful. But we don't have the authority to give them permission to stream that recorded material out onto the internet, because then it becomes a copy of a copy. And so that is something we get asked about quite a bit. And so basically, that's how it works.
In the cases where you do want to do music and you want to make sure that you're covered, you bought your streaming license, you've got your CCLI license, how do you find out if a song from this book or that book is covered?
Mm-hmm. Okay, it's a great question. And the way to do that is we have a song search engine on our website. CCLI does cover over 500,000 songs now. And so we cover, we feel it's about 95% of all music used in churches today. However, we don't necessarily cover every song that's used in churches today. And so on our website, we do ask you to create a profile, which is simply your name, an email address, and a password that you would create that we would not know. And then you can have access to our entire song search engine. And so you can, if you have a song from page 42 in your hymnal, and you wonder if that song is part of our program, you'd look up the song title in our database, and then also any other copyright information you might have, like an author or a publisher. And if it comes up, then you're golden, and you can use that song with our license. If it doesn't come up, loosely speaking, that means we don't cover it, and you'd have to seek other permission. And if you have a question of whether it's covered or not, you can always call or email, and we're glad to respond to validate yes or no. We don't necessarily have every song from each of the publishers that we cover, because they haven't maybe given us all their songs. And so we can do a search ourselves directly with that publisher to say, hey, somebody's asking to copy this song and use it for their services. Is this one of yours? They're saying it's one of yours, and they can validate for us that indeed that is the case. So that is part of our, the song search engine is now part of our Song Select program, but you don't have to have song select to use the song search engine, but you do have to create a profile. So that's how it works. And that's 24/7 online.
Chalice Press, One License, Publishing House, um, they've all shared something about how during this COVID-19 time, they're offering some of their resources for free.
Hmm.
And FYI, I'm going to link the direct links to the Chalice Press One License and Publishing House articles where they talk about that. But
Hmm.
what does that mean? Like if my church already has a CCL license and a streaming
Hmm.
license, how does what they're offering mesh with what I have? Does it matter?
Maybe. And so we represent about 5,000 publishers, and we definitely are the largest group of songs and publishers in the world. And so you can copy any song essentially from each of those publishers and stream it. However, um, we don't, because we don't cover every song, they may be covered under one license. And I do have to be careful because I don't want to speak for them or any of those other publishers. So I'm going to be careful because I don't want to say anything wrong about them, that's for sure. But each individual publisher can decide on their own whether they want to offer their services for free or charge $1 million. Whatever they do, it's their songs. Just like if any of us wrote a song, I can put whatever price I want to on it, and people can always say no. And so with CCLI, we don't actually own any of the songs that we work with. We have contracts with all of our publishers that we represent. And so if you wanted to use something, for example, from one license, and they have a set of publishers, and some of their publishers are not covered by CCLI, you could you could work with them to then copy or stream their songs and in whatever criteria that they set up for their programs, whether it's free for a while or whether you pay X number of dollars or whatever. So we have, right now we have about 150,000 license holders in the United States, but there are some of those, and I don't have a number, but there are some that have two licenses, one with us, one with one license. With United Methodist Publishing House, they are one of our publishers, and so they fall under our umbrella anyway. Chalice Press, I'd have to look up. I don't remember that one. So, um, but anyway, they if they're one of our publishers, you can use them. Great, till the cows come home. If one license is a company like us that offers multiple publishers under their umbrella, and so if one of their publishers is ours, you can use our license or theirs, of course. And if one of their publishers is not under umbrella, you'd have to go to them for that permission or go to that individual publisher for permission.
Okay, so for the churches that don't currently have a streaming license and they're wanting to move on to an online worship service and include some of these songs,
Hmm.
um, for now, they might be okay looking at Chalice Press and Publishing House and One License, thank
Yeah,
you. Um, but they still need to be careful because not that doesn't mean that every single one of their songs is covered. They still need to look it up.
correct. Yes, that's absolutely right. And so, so when you're looking in your hymnal and you see if the song is owned by United Methodist Publishing House and they've given freedom to use their stuff for 30 days, say, then yeah, awesome. That is great. It doesn't mean that the United Methodist hymnal is all covered because each individual song has its own copyright. And so you have to validate that that song is covered by the United Methodist Publishing House. And the one on page 56 might be by Hope Publishing, or the one on page 72 might be by Oregon Catholic Press. And so you have to verify who the ownership is and who the licensing would come through. And so it can be a little bit complicated, and that's why CCLI started in 1988, was to help. Um, it was way more complicated before that. And so hopefully we simplified a lot of things, and then these other licenses have come about since then. And so, so yeah, I kind of rambled there a little bit. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So churches really should start thinking about purchasing a streaming license if they really want to be able to have access to a greater number of songs that they can stream online, and they need to be careful to not stream a pre-recorded song.
Yes, yes, ma'am. And as you might imagine, we've been inundated with calls the last week and a half since so many churches have shut down. Um, my church personally shut down, and so I watched last Sunday service online. And so so yeah, we're glad to help. If we're the best resource for you, we're more than happy to help you. We This isn't a plug to try to get more sales, but it is a reality. We're offering 10% off of all of our licenses for this season. And so we're glad to help out by email or phone or online. So if that works for any of your people, that's wonderful.
All right, thank you, Greg with two G's.
Yeah.
And Greg Nelson has a question for us, one of our panelists.
Well, I just wondered if this would be a good time for me to pass a couple questions that are in the chat here that people have asked.
Yes, thank you. So FYI, people, our participants, if you have a question, type in your questions using the Q&A at the bottom. That way we can see that they're pending. And our panelists will respond to you directly. And in some cases, we'll go ahead and bring it up so that everybody can hear it, like Greg is doing now. Thanks, Greg.
So one Greg to another here. One person says, do I need this for Facebook and YouTube?
The most important thing you need is permission. So again, our license isn't meant to be the end all be all, but for the most part, for most people it is. And so you do need permission to put your stuff on Facebook and YouTube in particular, because they will shut you down. And we get calls every day. Facebook's blocked us, YouTube's blocked us. We can't figure out why, et cetera, et cetera. Well, do you have a license? Do you have permission?
Right.
And that's the problem.
And my personal experience with YouTube is they block you first, and then you try to prove to them you're not if they want to listen.
Often that's the case, yes.
So there's a related question here that was from Rick, and it says, if I've purchased a video with I'm going to add the word full, but purchased a video with copyright, can that be streamed with or without the CCLI license? If he actually bought the right to show it, he's good, right?
That's a great question. And my suggestion is no. You have permission when you buy something, you have permission to do certain things with it. For example, if I buy a car, I can drive it on the street, but I don't have permission to drive it on a sidewalk, even if I own that car. And so with a video, for example, you have permission to show it. You can have 100 people over to your house if you can fit it in, et cetera. You can make popcorn. You can charge them money if you wanted to. However, a video, you don't have permission to take that video and to stream it on your own.
And Ann Leiter asks, how do I prove that I have the license so Facebook won't shut me down? This came up for our production this week. Okay. Should we be putting our CCLI license in the opening credits or something? It's
a great question. CCLI has no requirement that you put your streaming license number on anything that you stream. So what we suggest is, and yes, sometimes YouTube and Facebook, as I mentioned, do question it. Then we say, show them your license certificate. And you can get your license certificate on our website. Anybody can print it off. Then we suggest scanning it and emailing it to whatever email address that they share with you. And then that almost always takes care of it. If it doesn't, then there usually is a deeper issue that YouTube or Facebook are contending with. And the deeper issue most often is the use of pre-recorded material in that stream.
And with YouTube, they have AI things that are listening for music tracks and will just pick them up automatically, right?
Yeah.
All right,
yes,
guys, that's been our first 15 minutes, and that's thank you very much, Greg Greg with two G's from CCLI for joining us.
You bet. I'm glad to help out in any way I can. I'll mention if anybody here does have further direct questions of me, I'm more than happy to present my email address if you'd like me to.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. It's G Christensen. That's GChristenson at ccli.com.
Rocky Cascolin, sorry. Can a rearrangement of remix of a song in the public domain be live streamed with no restrictions? David, do you know the answer to that?
So the qualifier was that the song's in the public domain, right? If that was in his question. Yeah. And
Yes.
you can take anything that by public domain, by default, you can take and do whatever you want with it. So you can make your own arrangement. Now you could copyright your arrangement, and then you could, you know, post restrictions, but it's a lot nicer to put it out there and make your arrangement public domain for other people as well.
So, and might as well dive in just a touch on the difference between public domain and copyright.
Right.
If you want to.
So copyright, everything, the minute it's created, is technically copyrighted. You don't have to submit everything to the US Copyright Office to have it copyrighted. You can claim copyright on something as a creator right away.
But I guess with copyright free versus public domain.
Yeah, so that's pretty much the same thing, unless what it is there's different levels of licensing. You'll encounter that if you go onto, like, for example, Wikipedia. And Wikipedia has a little cousin resource called Wikimedia, which is like the pictures and maps and some other things that show up. And so there's the GNU or GNU type licensing you might have heard of, and there are different levels. There's like, please give attribution. All right, you can put your stuff out there and say, yeah, my stuff's free, but please give me credit. Or there's just wide open unrestricted licensing. So stuff when you use the term public domain, that's pretty much an umbrella term for, yeah, it's wide open.
And I think public domain usually applies to an older item that the copyright has expired.
Exactly.
And when the copyrights used to be shorter, so there are many things were in the public domain, and then Congress rewrote the law with a longer window. So now things stay in private control longer. You also want to look for there be licensing for free with attribution, no commercial use. So my interpretation has always been sharing it with a church congregation is not a commercial use, it's a nonprofit use, because I'm not using it as an illustration in a book that I then sell for an image format. So if you're not deriving further profit from it, you're still in a non-commercial application.
Thanks, guys. So we've got one more question. I realize there's a lot more, but the last one that we're going to have time for is from David Harris. He says, with Zoom, what are the parameters with using a sermon reference, which was given by someone else?
If you're using a sermon by somebody else, you have the same responsibility to avoid plagiarizing that you would standing in front of a congregation. So if you're reading someone else's material, you need to say, I'm using someone else's material. It's even better if you contacted them and say, hey, do you mind? So you have to be clear that you are not plagiarizing. Just like when you cite from someone's book, you need to say what the book is. Make sure that people don't think your sermon is your own creative content if it's not. That's respectful, that's Christian, and that's the law. So that would be the general thing. Those things don't change from when you're face-to-face from when you're online.
All right, and that is our signal to be done. Join the Western Jurisdiction Facebook group. Let's keep resourcing each other. The questions that weren't answered will be answered, and the document will be posted as an FAQ with a topic of worship online in that Facebook group. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, participants. And I hope to see you guys tomorrow at 10.